Picture this. It's mid-morning. You're sitting completely alone in your office, the door is shut, and the only sound is the quiet hum of the air conditioning. You're staring at your screen, and suddenly, you catch yourself muttering out loud. Maybe you're arguing with a spreadsheet, or perhaps you just whispered, No, that's not right. We need to move this over here. You pause, look around the empty room, and think, Am I losing it? Well, let's dive right into this, because what you're experiencing in that quiet office is a truly fascinating psychological phenomenon. And honestly, it deserves a proper explainer. So, why exactly are you talking to yourself? Right off the bat, I want to reassure you. If you're asking yourself this question and feeling a little called out right now, just take a deep breath. Psychology actually tells us that this habit is a sign of a highly active, mentally engaged mind. It is absolutely not a sign of instability, and no, it's not just some quirk of loneliness either. Tons of mentally active people do this constantly, sometimes without even noticing it throughout their workday. It's actually just your brain hard at work. Section 1. The Empty Office Confessional. Organizing the Mental Mess. Let's look at the very first scenario of a typical solo workday. You're tackling this massive, overwhelming project, your deadline is super tight, and your internal thoughts just feel completely tangled up. When thoughts just stay trapped internally, they can feel incredibly messy and abstract. It's like a giant puzzle with no edge pieces. But the moment you speak those words out loud, everything becomes clearer and much more processed. By actually vocalizing those thoughts, you are activating entirely different cognitive systems than you use for silent thinking. Your brain literally processes thoughts better verbally. You're taking an invisible, swirling mess and turning it into clear, manageable ideas. And that right there is exactly why you instinctively talk through problems when you're all alone in the office. Moving on to Section 2, your own emotional support, regulating stress. Okay, so fast forward a bit in the day. It's right after lunch and you hit a massive, incredibly frustrating roadblock. The pressure is on and suddenly the office feels very, very small. You lean back in your chair, rub your temples, and just say out loud to an empty room, calm down, you can handle this. Now, psychology explains that this specific type of self-directed speech isn't just empty chatter. It's actually a proven tool to help regulate your anxiety and your emotional reactions. Hearing those words, even when they're coming from your own mouth, actually triggers a calming response in the brain. Ultimately, by talking out loud during those intense, high-pressure moments, you create a tangible feeling of guidance and control. You are essentially stepping outside of yourself to offer reassurance. You are becoming your very own emotional support system. It's a pretty remarkable self-soothing mechanism, and it's exactly what gets you through the absolute toughest parts of a solitary workday. Section 3. The Highly Imaginative Mind. Releasing Mental Pressure. All right, so after surviving that stressful email, you decide to grab a quick coffee. You aren't actively working, but your highly imaginative brain? Yeah, it absolutely refuses to stay quiet. If you're a creative or mentally active person, you frequently experience this incredibly fast-moving internal dialogue. It's filled with random ideas, imagined scenarios, vivid memories, maybe even rehearsing future conversations. The mind rarely just shuts off. Well, speaking parts of those chaotic thoughts aloud actually helps release that built-up mental pressure. It takes the invisible and makes it tangible, basically giving your brain a much-needed release valve before you have to sit back down at your desk. Which brings us to Section 4. Replaying that awkward meeting, seeking closure. Now you're back in your office, but your focus is completely derailed. You are pacing the room, actively talking to the walls about some awkward Zoom call you had earlier in the day. Believe it or not, this is a completely normal psychological mechanism. Think about the steps here. First, you replay the argument or the conversation. Second, you imagine different, maybe slightly better, responses. You might even actually say these new punchy responses out loud. And why? Because ultimately, step 3, your brain is simply trying to gain social control and emotional closure. Your mind is literally just still processing the interaction. You aren't losing it, your brain is just finishing the meeting on its own terms. And finally, Section 5, hacking your work performance, the final push. It's late afternoon now. This is that crucial golden hour where you really need to block out all distractions. But let's be real, the fatigue is definitely setting in. This is exactly when you might catch yourself whispering a little mantra like, focus, one step at a time, keep going. These intentional verbal self-instructions, they aren't just for office workers. They are used deliberately by elite athletes, stage performers, and top professionals to drastically improve their concentration and their task performance.
It is a proven, absolutely real psychological hack. So, the crucial point we need to take away here is that your brain is quite literally hardwired to respond incredibly strongly to spoken commands. When you speak instructions out loud, it directly guides your attention and actively reduces mental distraction. Even when those commands come from your own voice, the brain snaps to attention, cutting right through that late afternoon brain fog to carry you all the way across the finish line.
It totally reframes the whole experience, doesn't it? What starts out feeling like this embarrassing little habit in an empty office is, in reality, a seriously powerful tool for emotional regulation, cognitive processing, and laser-sharp focus. So I want to leave you with this final thought to chew on. Once you understand this hidden psychology, how are you going to see the next person you catch talking to themselves? Or, actually, better yet, how will you treat yourself the next time you catch yourself doing it? Embrace the chatter, guys, because it is the true mark of a highly functional, actively regulated mind.